Meeting's called to order. Thank you all for being here. And our opening exercise tonight, we are super excited to have Cub Scout Pack 358 here to lead us in our pledge. If you all would, come on up.
Color guard attention. Please rise as we present the colors. Scout salute. All those not in uniform, please place your right hand over your hearts. Color guard, present the colors. Color guard, halt. Color guard, across the colors. Color guard, post the Texas flag. Color guard, post the American flag. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. 2. Color guard, return to ranks. Parents and guests, please be seated.
Great job. Thank you very much for that. That is awesome. You guys did an awesome job. So give them another round of applause. Let the roll reflect that all board members were present. And our next item of business is recognitions. So with that, I will let Dr. Cordell take over.
Thank you, Mr. President. I am so glad to be here this evening celebrating our new hires. And we have a very special tradition in Lovejoy ISD, and that is to give our new teachers an apple and a pen. The apple represents the traditional importance of a teacher's role in our schools and in our community. And then the pen represents our hope that this teacher will write the next chapter of their career here with us in Lovejoy ISD, and that chapter will be filled with great things. Our first educator that we would like to recognize and welcome to Lovejoy ISD is Dr. Laurie Quinsley. Dr. Tinsley is our new Assistant Superintendent of Student Services. Dr. Tinsley joins us from Frisco ISD. She has 25 years of experience in multiple districts, serving in various capacities. She has supervised principals, curriculum instruction, and multiple other areas. And one of my favorite things about Dr. Tinsley is her commitment to making student-centered decisions, her getting right in the middle of a problem, facing it head on and finding a solution, and then also her ability to always, no matter how complicated or challenging things get, to find the joy in what she does and the joy in our students. Even in the most challenging of times, she's able to find that joy and often make the people around her remember that as well. So Dr. Tinsley, we are so glad you are part of Lovejoy ISD.
I had the honor of introducing Mrs. Dee Dee Lewis, who is our new Director of Transportation. Dee Dee will come up. I'm 10 days on the job or 11 days on the job today, and I've had the pleasure of learning quite a bit from Mrs. Lewis, and as we're working to get our students home and to school safely. And she comes from Allen ISD, and just has been on board a little bit longer than I have, but enough to keep me informed and help me grow in that area as well. So I'd like to welcome Dee Dee Lewis. Craft.
Good evening. My name is Wendy Kraft, and I have the honor of serving as a principal at Hart Elementary. Will the Hart teachers come on up, please? It's my honor to introduce first Katrina Araby. She's going to be our music teacher, or she is our music teacher. She recently graduated from the University of North Texas, and she joins us from Burke Burnett, where she taught music to 3rd through 5th graders. Please welcome Katrina Araby. Next, we have Jennifer Finnegan. She's a 2nd grade teacher, and she has 4 years teaching pre-K through kinder, and most recently she taught pre-K and for Lovejoy ISD. Jennifer Finnegan. Next, we have Brenda Minix. She is our 4th grade math teacher. She comes to us from Allen ISD, where she has taught 3rd through 5th grade math, and she has 17 years of experience. Brenda Minix. We have Kate O'Donnell, who is a 2nd grade teacher. She was most recently a stay-at-home mom, but prior to that, she taught 5 years in Washington, 3rd grade through middle school, and she's also a parent in our district. Kate O'Donnell. Last but not least, we have Chelsea Sexton, and she is our art teacher, and she is beginning her 10th year of teaching, and she most recently came from Richardson ISD, where she taught art, but she also has experience as a 2nd grade teacher. So Chelsea Sexton.
Good evening. I am Holly Haynes. I am the proud principal of Pester Elementary, and it is my honor to introduce Miss Jenny A.G. Jenny is a 2nd grade teacher at Pester this year. We stole her from Prestonwood Christian Academy. Jenny taught 2nd and 4th grades there and is entering her 4th year of teaching. I met Jenny in the hallway the other day and just asked how that first week was going, and she said it really feels like Christmas every day. She's eager for a team and eager to learn in Lovejoy.
Hello, I'm Roy Winkler. I'm the principal of Sloan Creek Intermediate School, and I have the distinct pleasure of welcoming 2 of our new hires. One is Jeff Segahorn. Jeff is our brand new PE and swimming coach. We stole him from the clutches of McKinney ISD. He's a 6-year veteran, an amazing swimming coach, and our kids love him. Jeff Segahorn. Next is Rachel Spears. Rachel has 15 years of teaching experience from Laurie ISD. She's teaching 6th grade English for us. We're really thrilled to have her. She has some K4 experience as well as upper grade level, so she's kind of taught it all. We're really excited for the experience she's given our kids at Sloan Creek.
Good evening. My name is Kevin Parker, and I have the pleasure of serving as the principal at Willow Springs Middle School. We have 4 new hires that we would like to introduce tonight, and I'm going to ask all of them to join me up here. The first is Megan Bykowski. And Ms. Bykowski, this is her first year teaching, and we're really glad that she chose Lovejoy to start her career. She's a North Texas grad. Last year, she served as a permanent sub on our campus. And so she's familiar with Willow Springs, how we do things, the students. And this year she's going to be serving as an 8th grade science teacher. She has a dance background, so she'll also be, well, we converted her into our cheer sponsor as well. So we're really happy to have Megan. Next, we have Pam Jenkinson. Ms. Jenkinson is in her 13th year. I believe she's starting her 13th year in education. She moved from just across the street down in Vermont, and she has worked in Georgia and Vermont at the middle school level, and she is a Southern Illinois grad, and she will be teaching resource math. We're really happy to have Ms. Jenkinson. That's not on the script. Next, we have Ms. Vivian Espinoza. Ms. Espinoza is in her 5th year of education. She comes to us from Los Fresnos ISD, which is down in South Texas. She's a graduate of UT Pan Am. This year, she will be teaching 7th grade science and a girls athletic coach. Welcome, Ms. Espinoza. And finally, all the way from Georgia, we have Will Goggins. He is in his 2nd year of teaching. Last year, he was in Prosper. He is a graduate of Troy University, and he will be teaching 7th grade history and also coaching our boys. Welcome, Mr. Goggins.
Well, good evening. My name is Chris Mayfield, and I have the honor of serving as principal of Lovejoy High School. And if I could have my new hires to recognize tonight, I would love to do that. And we'll just let you guys stand up front. That's great. All right. Well, first, I have the great honor to recognize Miss Jamie Allen. Jamie, if you'll wave at them. Jamie is going to be our instructional media specialist at the high school. She's got her bachelor's in literary studies from the University of Texas at Dallas and graduate certification in publishing from the University of Denver. She worked at Willow Springs a little bit in the library there and also has been a campus technology specialist. And we're excited she'll be leading teachers and supporting them as they work on their instruction through the use of technology. So welcome, Jamie. Matt Cannon is next. Matt, if you'll wave. Matt is a fellow Oklahoma State grad, and he got his bachelor's degree of secondary education with an emphasis in physics. He spent the last 5 years teaching at Richardson Berkner High School and coaching there, and we're excited to have him at Lovejoy High School coaching and teaching forensics. Judith Dreyer, or Judy Dreyer, is next. Judy comes to us. She's one of our new counselors at the high school. After receiving her master's of education degree in counseling from the University of St. Thomas in Houston, she started out as an English teacher, moved into the counseling role, and has spent the last 3 years both supporting middle and high school students in a counseling role, and we're glad to have Judy. Lacey Garza is next. Lacey comes to us after teaching for 6 years. She taught elementary as in art in Coppell and taught at Plano Senior High as well. We are super excited to have her as part of our art team, really talented art team. Help me welcome Lacey Garza. Kaylee Hiertz is next. Kaylee comes to us from the great state of Nebraska. We got her all the way down here. She hasn't been teaching very long, just 3 years in special education, but we are thrilled to have her. She is an English resource teacher at Lovejoy High School, and she's already made a splash with kiddos. So thank you, Kaylee. Welcome. Tammy Mothey is next. Tammy is going to be teaching U.S. History and Government, or currently is teaching U.S. History and Government. She came to teaching a little later in life. This is a second career for her, but her prior work experience for AT&T and some of the leadership roles she served there is going to serve her well, and we're excited about her teaching at Lovejoy High School. Jenna Morrison is next. This is Jenna's first year as a teacher, so we welcome her to the profession, and we recruited her all the way from Purdue University, where she got her degree in social studies education. She will be teaching U.S. history at the high school. Welcome, Jenna. Jacob Sexton is here. Jacob got his undergrad, Bachelor of Arts in English from Ouachita Baptist University. He spent a couple of years teaching before coming here. He was at Sulphur Springs last year. He will be joining us coaching and teaching business courses at the high school. Welcome, Jacob. Bill Watson is next. Bill got his Bachelor of Arts from the Bachelor BA from the University of Science and Arts of Oklahoma. Has a master's degree as well. He taught in Florida for 33 years, retired, and we pulled him out of retirement to teach social studies at the high school. He lives here in Allen, and we're glad to have Bill. Mary Kate Wegner is next. MK comes to us from J.J. Pierce High School. She was there for 6 years working in their special education department. She will be serving as the special education lead at Lovejoy High School, and she has jumped in and been amazing from the get-go. We're glad she's here. And last but not least, for sure, is Vince Williams. Vince has, and I don't hold this against him, he got a bachelor's degree in math from the University of Oklahoma and has a master's in curriculum and instruction with a math and STEM focus from the University of North Texas. Vince has served in Lancaster as a teacher and coach for the last 9 years, and we are thrilled to have him teaching Algebra 2 and coaching at Lovejoy High School. Welcome, Vince. If you don't mind, can we give this group one more round of applause? I appreciate it.
Picture time?
Come right on back up.
we have a couple of special recognitions this evening that I want to speak to before I hand it over to Dr. Duplessis, our CFO. And that is for our custodial team and our facilities team. These are two incredible teams that we are so grateful for what they do day in and day out. There really are not enough thank yous for what they do. They often work very much behind the scenes, take incredible care of our buildings, make sure that they are healthy and safe places for our students and our staff to work in, and go above and beyond. What they need to know is obviously in the preparation for a school year, there are a lot of meetings that we sit in as administrators. And in almost every one of those meetings, as we were sitting and debriefing about getting the year started, what yet needed to be done, it came up almost every time what a remarkable job our custodial staff and our facilities team are doing in taking care of our campuses and our staff in order to get the school year launched. And we are so grateful. And because of that outstanding work that they are doing, we wanted to make sure that we recognize them publicly this evening. I will now hand it over to Dr. Duplessis to say a few more words.
Thank you, Ms. Cordell. I would like to take a moment first to say good evening, buenas noches. Would all of my custodial team please stand here together? I hope that shows you just how much you are appreciated. You will see everybody's name on the custodial team on the slide ahead of you. And I just wanted to share a quick word about what these folks have done for us to prepare for this school year. You have been absolutely amazing. You're responsible for so much more than sweeping and dusting and picking up. You are our first line of defense, especially this year and coming back after last year. Thank you. We appreciate everything that you do. We thank you for being fearless, for being dedicated to our students and our staff. And Katie was right. I can't tell you, this is my third week here, so I can't claim any credit for the amazing things that you've done. But meeting after meeting, campus after campus, I was told about the things that you have done to help keep our facilities prepared for our students. So thank you for putting our students first, and our administration and board has prepared something for you.
So I just want to reiterate the words of gratitude from the board for all that you do to serve our children and our district. You guys are amazing. There's not enough words to thank you, so accept these. Thank you very much for all that you do. Thank you.
Thank you. I know many of them have a lot to do and they've been working a lot of long hours, so you are free to go back, many of you, to what you have before you this evening. Thank you for coming. At this time, I'd also like to recognize our facilities and maintenance team. I thank James, Jose, Miguel, and last but not least, Alex. If you don't mind coming up to the front, you kind of know what's coming now. You'll see our maintenance team's names on the slide. And again, I can't tell you how often I have called specifically Alex and relayed messages to this team of things that we needed to do to try to get the campuses ready for students. It has been hot or wet. We have been shorthanded. We've been very busy. And I cannot thank this crew enough. I've worn their phones out this week, whether it was power outages or traffic or rain or something like that. And they've always immediately responded with whatever was needed. So we want to thank you for everything that you're doing to keep us going.
A lot of perception is drawn by how people view our premises, our facilities when they come and visit, come to school, see us. And you guys obviously are a major component of the success and how that looks. So very grateful, no small order, the job you have to do, and very grateful for all that you do to serve our district. So thank you so much.
Our next recognition is a partnership recognition, and we wanted to make sure that we publicly celebrated our partnership with the American Heart Association. We've got Tanya Bradford here and her team to share with us a little bit about this partnership, but we are so thankful because they have donated 8 water bottle fillers to our campuses, which total an amount of about $8,000. We are so grateful to have these water bottle fillers because we know the more water our students drink, the healthier they are, and particularly in the current climate, it's even more important that our students have access to healthy water that they're able to put directly in those water bottles and bring with them to class. So we are so grateful and so appreciative for the partnership. Did you want to say a couple words?
Hi, everybody. I'm Cameron Waldo, and this is Tanya Bradford and Julie Davis, and we have the privilege of representing Lovejoy ISD for the American Heart Association. And we're so thankful and grateful for the support of Lovejoy ISD through our service learning programs, Kids Heart Challenge and American Heart Challenge. We know how important it is for students to have access to fresh, clean water, as increased water consumption can decrease consumption of unhealthy beverages. Water bottle filling stations in schools nearly triple the amount of water that students drink at lunch, and also positively impacts children's cognitive performance, particularly in the short term. So with that said, through the generous support of Juniper, Worldwide Technologies, and Telco Buy, we're thrilled to be able to install up to 8 water bottle filling stations at campuses across the district. Thank you, Dr. Cordell. We're so grateful for the support of Lovejoy ISD, and we're thrilled to make this announcement. So thank you, everybody.
You can be.
I have to say a side note too, so for Julie and I, Dr. Tinsley was once upon a time our kids' principal, and she is legendary. We're in high school now, the whole neighborhood group still talks about how phenomenal she set her bar. That is true. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
All right. We'll now hear public comments for agenda items. Stacy Dillon will advise if anyone signed up to address the board.
Mr. Owens, there are no public comments related to agenda items.
Thank you. All right. Our next item on the agenda is the invocation. And if you would all bow your heads with me. Dear Heavenly Father, thank you so much for the opportunity to gather. Thank you for the privilege to serve our students, families, and community. I pray for blessings upon these discussions tonight. I pray for the will of you to be done in all that we're doing to help our kids and to educate them. And I pray for grace, love, and support in this hearing tonight. Watch over us, Lord, and keep us safe. In Christ's name, amen. Amen. All right. Item 8 is the consent agenda. Does anyone have anything they need pulled on the consent agenda? If there are no deliberations, we would need a motion to approve that. So move Chad Collins.
Second, Ann Raines.
Second, Amy Smith. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, consent agenda passes. Next item is board notification information by Ms. Cordell.
Yes. Board, we have a notification for you. We are required to notify you of resignations. So you can find those in your board book on page 119. This item does not require action.
Any questions on those? Thank you.
Let me address that. The second item on there is notification of the 2021 school year purchases over $50,000. Again, this item is for your information. It does not require action.
Anyone have any questions on any of those items? From 20.
Is that just an ongoing contract that we're purchasing a certain number?
With that amount, that would not indicate that was an ongoing cost. That looks like that was a purchase, but we can verify that. I can have Dr. Duplessis and Dr. Tinsley.
I just didn't know if we're not operating at current leading capacity. That was a big ticket item that I just.
So we
may be retiring a bus. Okay.
I think we received a grant to acquire those buses last year. So we had applied for and received a grant to acquire those. And this acquisition that's noted here is the acquisition of those buses funded by those grant funds.
To add to that, I think it helps. We had a lot of old buses, if I recall, and these had the safety features like the seat belts and all that different stuff. And we had to spend the money on the bus because that's how the grant. Correct. If I recall, do you guys remember it that way?
That's accurate. Okay. Good question. Any other questions? Okay. Thank you, Ms. Cordell. All right. We're now going to open a public hearing to discuss the Elementary and Secondary School Emergency Relief Fund ESSER supplement. This is a supplemental federal spending plan, and Dr. Duplessis is here to present.
morning. I come before you with a public hearing as required by the state in regard to ESSER spending. So I have some slides we'll go through here, and then we can open that up for public comment if there is any in regard to the ESSER supplemental program. Sorry, got excited. So some of y'all may have heard of ESSER funding, and you probably heard about it from other districts around us who might have received ESSER funding. ESSER funding is the Elementary and Secondary School Emergency Relief Fund. The federal government has allocated those funds to states who have then allocated them down through other organizations such as an LEA like us, Lovejoy ISD. Unfortunately for us, a lot of the previous funding that was available through ESSER 3 and ESSER 2, which were released previously this year in that order, were based on Title I Part A numbers. So you may or may not be aware that in Lovejoy ISD, we don't have very much Title I Part A involvement. So we did not receive an allocation earlier, and so that's why you're just now hearing about ESSER funds here. Those funds can be spent, 80% of those funds can be spent on a wide range of pandemic response items. That can include anything from PPE to sanitation, demographic studies, all those things you see listed on the slide. But 20% must be used for learning loss. That includes another host of categories such as early intervention, tutoring, credit recovery, and class sizes. It can include one-time staffing. It does require us to complete some forms and information to the state based on maintenance of equity, which ensures that we're serving all of our students. But the interesting piece with our ESSER funds is it does require stakeholder engagement. So it requires the district to have conversations with various groups throughout the district about how we choose to use those funds and to receive public comment on that. So this shows you a little bit about the ESSER amounts from previous designations. ESSER 1 came about late summer, and you can see the total funding was $13.2 billion nationwide. You can see the allocation to Texas was just under $1.3 billion. And if you follow the formula down, you can see that allocated to Texas school districts was $1.157 billion. The state chose to use that funding mechanism to supplant our foundation school program. So rather than that being an additive fund to school districts, it replaced the funding that we normally see. So there was no net positive there for any school district. For ESSER 2, you can follow the formulas down from the $54.3 billion that was provided nationwide down to $4.977 billion that was provided to Texas school districts. Lovejoy ISD received $0 from ESSER 2. For ESSER 3, total funding nationwide was $122 billion. Texas school districts at the bottom received $11.177 billion. Lovejoy ISD received $0. Again, this is because that funding is based on the Title I funding, which we don't receive very much of. So this is an excerpt from the release of what is called ESSER Supplemental. So as you can imagine, those districts that received ESSER 3 and ESSER 2 funding and are spending tens of millions of dollars on things for their school districts were a bit of an anomaly compared to districts like us who did not receive very much funding. So the state did come out with a supplemental program with remaining ESSER 3 funds. And this is an excerpt from the release of those funds. So you'll see these funds will be expended through 2023, and the allocation for each of those amounts is listed there. It totals a little over $2 million. So while some districts, in fact, the district I left received about $36 million in ESSER 3 and $27 million in ESSER 2, we received just over $2 million in ESSER supplemental. So a lot of the items that you might hear other districts using ESSER funds for, our allocation just isn't close to that. So that might kind of explain some of the uses that we're looking at. So the unique thing about these ESSER funds is we can use them back towards pre-award expenditures. What that means is anything that at the start of COVID until now that we have expended related to either learning recovery or COVID costs, we can get back. So you'll see three columns there. One is pre-award. one is 21-22, and one is 22-23. So these are the 3 time periods in which we can allocate those total of a little over $2 million that you see on the bottom right. So there's a certain amount we will spend on learning recovery and a certain amount spent on COVID costs. Our number one goal, we'll go over kind of some strategies around this funding, but those are the 2 things that the state requires us to focus on, is that learning recovery and COVID costs. In regard to learning recovery, reading intervention is an area that we've been focusing on, as well as instructional materials. You may or may not have heard that the state cut the instructional materials allotment 60%. They did lessen a few of the entitlements that they're requiring us to purchase, but also most districts are using some of their other ESSER funds to supplement the loss in instructional materials allotment. So that's an area that we need to focus on to bolster our amount for instructional materials. And then we also want to look at our COVID costs. Obviously, our focus is on financial sustainability as we move forward. So we do want to look at how we might recapture any of the costs that we incur as a result of COVID. So our number one strategy on ESSER supplemental is get our application in by August 31st. So we definitely want to make sure that we submit with that deadline. We've prepared and drafted as much as we can. We will hit that deadline. As we've kind of discussed the uses of this couple $1 million, we really want to focus on financial reimbursement. We have I've already tracked over $1 million of costs that we incurred due to COVID from the beginning of COVID until now. So those are easy funds that we can go back and recapture. We also want to look at our most pressing COVID and learning loss needs and our financial needs. How can we build our tools to move forward successfully, not only making sure we're focusing on past expenditures, any areas of learning loss, and also looking towards the future and how we can set ourselves up to ensure that we're capturing these funds moving forward. There have been other COVID funding programs. We have not achieved, I looked through our general ledger, we didn't get very much, and it is really my goal to make sure that we go after every dollar that we can. These funds do also expire in 2023. So it's also important to note as we plan for these expenditures that we don't plan something that we think is going to continue automatically. So we have to have a thoughtful approach to the things that we spend and look at 2023 and what might we be able to either absorb or discontinue spending at that time. So that's a brief summary of the ESSER supplemental program. And at this point, we'll take any public comment or questions.
So this is one of those times when you guys can give public comment and we can discuss the items that are at hand. So I might just lead with, I've talked to some of you about ESSER in the past through communications, through email. And so it's one of the most frustrating things that I've been able to experience. Obviously, COVID did not pick and choose districts that it targeted. Our country as a whole had to deal with the effects and costs associated with this. When these funds were allocated from the federal government down to the state, they had strings attached, and those were a mechanism, a funding mechanism that was based on Title I, Part A numbers. For a district like Lovejoy, it doesn't really equate for us. We got $0, as you can see. Some districts around us were able to get well in excess of their expenditures, while we got zero. So very frustrating component for us as a district, and we're thankful for this supplement process to be able to recapture a little bit of some of those expenditures. And that's what this hearing is about. So if there's no public comments, then we will close the public hearing and move on to the approval of the application. So with that, if there are any questions by the board or discussion items.
I have it's more of a curriculum question around the learning loss and the interventions with that. Do we have a couple of examples of what that might look like? The allocations of it looks $1.5 million.
So first of all, learning resources, we lost 60% of the funding that's support learning resources, textbooks, technology, resources in the classroom. So certainly addressing that gap is going to be important. We've also implemented an intervention position, actually an intervention teaching position. That's an area large class sizes have to do with elementary schools and really holding up any learning gaps that students have coming out of last year. And then we're going to continue to explore what are those gaps that the data is telling us that we have, and address those knowing that it's only for 2 years.
Thank you.
So you're still assessing. You're still in the where we need intervention state.
2 immediate needs are the learning resources and funding through the state. And the second is intervention support for our small Creek students. They don't have a CAT degree or CAT structure. So those middle school.
I have a question. Do we have to say by August 31st exactly out of those 2 buckets?
No, that's a great question.
Okay.
We are required to meet the percentage applied for learning loss. I don't think we'll have any issue with that between our loss of instructional materials allotment funding, as well as our reading interventionists and our ability to go back. So that's one of the things that could really financially benefit the district is we're going to hit those things that we know we need, but there's already also been a great amount of work done around learning loss. So if there are prior expenditures that we can go back and cover, then we can do that as well.
Well, and I guess my thought is we're just a week in the school. So
Yes.
y'all are still trying to determine what the gaps are. And until we can have those check-ins at whatever point that is, 5-6 weeks, however you guys do it.
That's a
I
great
like the
question.
flexibility option so we don't say this and then really need it here or whatever.
And I did, we have reviewed the ESSER supplemental application itself is pretty broad. So we did provide an estimate of the COVID expenditures we've already had, which like I said was a little bit over $1 million. We also can revise this every 6 months, and it is required that we post those revisions on our website. So I think that's important to note that the state has provided some flexibility, realizing that we don't know everything about what we might see.
Thank you.
Great questions. No other, we'll need a motion. So moved. Ann. Second, Marvin. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you, Dr. Duplessis. All right, item 14 is to consider the adoption of our 2021-2022 tax rate. So you're up again.
I get to stay up. So it is, the board meeting is all about finance every year. It's the end of August board meeting, so I apologize about that. But the good thing is this is just a formal adoption of our final 21-22 tax rate. You will recall that back in June when we adopted the budget, we did have to post a tax rate, but that was in advance of receiving our maximum compressed rate from the state. So all the districts that have a June 30th year end have to do their best estimate and post that information, which we did. And fortunately, our final tax rate is below the rate that we posted in June, so we don't have to do anything additional as far as newspaper articles or things like that, but we did want to bring to you the final tax rate. The maintenance and operations tax rate will be $1.0050. The interest and sinking or INS tax rate is at 50 cents. So I will also note that the legislature requires some specific language in regard to our tax rates last year, that even though we are under tax rate compression, so your actual tax rate is decreasing, we are required to adopt this with, tax rate with specific language. Even though we are reducing 4.97 pennies, it does exceed the no new tax revenue rate, which is the rate at which we would levy the same amount of taxes we did last year. So you'll see specific language in there about a 1.24% increase in tax rate, which just means the total net that we'll receive as a result of that is increasing. So if you peruse other district websites, you'll see that language at the bottom of almost everybody's website, and it will be on ours as well soon. But you will see the ordinance attached in the board book. And again, that final total tax rate for 21-22 is $1.505050. And that is a reduction of 4.97 pennies.
So if I heard you right, you said taxes were going down?
That's correct, sir.
So does that mean, to clarify, the tax rate went down, but the total net revenue to the district is up because property values are up?
Exactly.
Well, that's good news.
That is good news all the way around.
That's great. Any questions for Dr. Duplessis? There's specific language in your books around how that motion needs to be conveyed. So if there are no other questions, someone would make a motion.
Barrett, I move that the property tax rate be increased by the adoption of a tax rate of $1.50050, which is effectively a 1.24% increase in the tax rate, that the accompanying ordinance be passed and adopted by the board of trustees. The rate is comprised of the maintenance and operations tax rate of 1.0050 and an interest and sinking rate of 0.500 for the 2021-22 fiscal year.
Motion is made by Mr.
I'll
James.
second.
Great job. I'll second it. Second by Chad Collins. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. All right. Item 16, consider a resolution expressing official intent to reimburse costs of projects from proceeds of bonds issued after the payment of said cost. Dr. Duplessis again.
So this item is in relation to the 2014 voter approved bond election. We do have $14.5 million remaining of authorization from that bond election. And the board did review and approve some small athletics projects in May. And so it's time for us to issue some additional bonds to fund those projects as well as any other small projects that may be brought and approved by the board in the future, to the extent that it meets the $5 million limit that we're placing on this particular new bond sale. So we do have Doug Witt and Brian Grubbs here from Samco, our financial advisor. So they'll be sharing some information with you on this bond sale.
Good evening. It's good to be back. I appreciate the opportunity. There was a 50-50 bet there whether or not I'd make it out of the bleacher without falling on my face. Not quite as athletic as I used to be. It's good to be back. We appreciate the opportunity. We have a very brief presentation to share with you. I don't know if it's going up on the screen or not. If it's not, I can pass it out. I will pass it out. So I have, while I'm doing that, Brian Grubbs, my partner. If the presentation was being done tonight in Frisco, he would be at the podium. I would be out in the sea of red. Very instrumental in assisting me and the administration through transition. So with that, we're here tonight to give you an update on something that you took action on in January, and then also have another couple of action items for you. So of course, this is the bond defeasance and redemption plan that we put into place in January. That has now been completed, and then of course, an update of the refunding bonds that have been authorized by the board but not yet completed because of the timelines given to us by the federal tax law. And then, as Dr. Duplessis said, the last item there is the authorization to proceed with the issuance of some of the bonds that have been approved by the voters and not yet issued. And those bonds will complete some of the projects that you have in front of you. So the first page is the same graph that you've seen with us in the past. Just to keep it real brief, to the far right corner, we are at record low interest rates. So any refinancing of bonds that may take place or any issuance of new bonds is going to be done at a very, very low borrowing cost. On the next page is a look at your approaching optional redemption dates. The two first bullet points in blue recognize the two bonds that are being defeased early and redeemed early. So for those in the audience, the district has been able to collect the money to pay bonds off early and save the district money in their interest and sinking fund account, which is separate and distinct from all other accounts of the district. And so those two have been complete. They were complete here in August, and we're pleased to report that. The third bullet point in red is your 2012 building bonds. There's about $30 million outstanding with maturities 2032 to 42, and has an approaching optional redemption early call provision February 15th of 2022. By federal tax law, to do the tax exempt refunding of this bond, we would have to close the refunding bonds in November. So we are putting into place the steps and mechanics in order to issue the refunding bonds and close in November. The same level of savings that we presented to you back in January are still available to us. It is a very, very significant amount of savings in your interest and sinking fund and your debt management plan. I think in the last presentation, we set that target level at about $17.5 million, and we currently are on track for that as well. The next four bullet points in black are some additional optional redemption dates that are coming up. These are being monitored and analyzed with the administration as we speak. Some things that have changed since January is we've gotten 6 months or 8 months closer to the call date, so that's a good thing. The second thing is we're now seeing federal legislation dubbed the infrastructure bill. It is not reinstating tax exempt status for refundings in advance of the call date. So any of these bonds that we might do on a refunding in advance of the call date, which is the far right column, would have to be on a taxable bond refunding. And that's something that we analyze and monitor. So that's, but again, all of this has been authorized in blue and in red. Any additional things that we think need to be brought to your attention at a later date with respect to other refinancings, we will do so at another board meeting at the appropriate time. On the next page is a graphical look at what we're doing. You can see there in green is the additional net defeased and redemption amount that matches up to your interest and sinking fund INS tax collections. We are refunding the yellow bar at lower interest rates and shortening the amortization, which provides additional savings to the district. So those bonds are going from a 2042 maturity to a 2039 maturity. And the other beautiful thing about this plan of finance is that in light blue, the $5 million of bonds that you're issuing are being amortized over a 3-year period. It's very, very rare that we're able to issue bonds at that short of amortization. It matches or is in fact shorter than the average life of the assets that you will be financing. And then you see the fade in the debt service profile providing additional capacity to complete the projects from the authorized but unissued bonds in accordance with your schedule and time frame and needs going forward. So with that, there are 2 items on the agenda. I'll just flip to the last page. It may be also in your board packet. But we do need authorization to proceed with the issuance of the $5 million of new bonds to be combined with the refunding and be done on the same time frame of what we call a school building and refunding bond financing. And then because that will close in November, but you may need some money from your general fund to complete those projects and to allow yourself to reimburse for that, we are presenting to you a resolution allowing for reimbursement that will make sure that there are no delays in any projects based on the timing that we're given under federal tax law. So with that, those are the 2 motions that are on there. We'll be happy to answer any questions that you have about these agenda items.
Doug, I don't have any questions pertaining to this specific one, but you mentioned around the savings that we've done by taking action and being very close to interest rates, and we have you come in quite a bit to talk about that, right? So this goes back because we have a lot of newer folks on the school board, and you may not have this off the top of your head, but the actions that we've been very proactive over the last several years of reducing the debt to our citizens. Do you have any recollection about how much that is?
I think sent a memo at one time following the last meeting. I don't have it in front of me. It's in the bag and I can go fish it out. But I'll tell you, this is not your first time to refinance bonds taking advantage of interest rates to save money. It's not your first time to accelerate the payment of prior bonds that were issued. Some of the challenges that you face, and just as an aside, there is no other institution in America that is more challenged to function than a school district in today's world. And so I'm very grateful for those of you who dedicate your life and time to the kids and the environment that we're in. But all the things that you're seeing in challenges from student counts and so forth that affect your maintenance and operating and the unfairness of programs that come out like that. On your bond side, we're having a different concept. We now don't need to go out and sell a bunch of bonds to build new buildings, or we've caught up and now we're amortizing very short. And so we're the beneficiaries of some of the challenges that you're experiencing on your maintenance and operating side. But you have been refinancing bonds for the past 10 years. You've been paying some bonds off early. You've been positioning yourself to be able to pay off this bond. And then when you look at your payment profile, you could not even envision that 15 years ago. 10 years ago, you could not have envisioned that accelerated payment, that declining debt service. I can give you the numbers. We have them, of course, but it's been millions and millions of dollars of refinancing. This is the next generation of that, and it is substantial because it's about $17.5 million on a $30 million financing, which is, I don't know any other way to describe it, but a massive amount of savings for that size of bond refinancing.
Perfect. Thank you very much. We'll take it.
Yeah.
I move that we adopt the order authorizing the issuance of the bonds as presented.
Second.
Motion by Chad, second by Amy Smith. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Also need a motion to, second motion there.
I move to adopt the resolution expressing intent to reimburse as presented.
So moved, Dan. Second, Marvin. Or Jeff? Both of you? Fight for it. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you, folks.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Dr. DeClosses. All right, item 17 is to consider an approval of resolutions with authorization pursuant to CKC local policy regarding school marshals. Casey Littlefield, Reagan Aguirre, Jorge Jaquez, forgive me if I butcher your name, Stephen Emery, and Chris Smith. Dr. Tinsley.
Thank you. What we are asking is that this is according to policy CK local, which requires the Board of Trustees to take specific action to authorize school administrators or employees to possess certain firearms on school property at school-sponsored or sanctioned events and at school board meetings. And so what we are asking is what we're doing during the 2021-22 school year, each of our 5 campuses will have an armed school marshal for the safety and security of each campus. The marshals are licensed by the Texas Commission of Law Enforcement with their 80-hour school marshal training. And so these 5 resolutions are recommending to the board that these employees can operate under the guidelines of the school marshal program. And as mentioned, Casey Littlefield, he is at the high school. Reagan Aguirre is at Willow Springs. Jorge Jaquez is at Sloan Creek, and Stephen Emery is at Puster, and Chris Smith is at Hart.
Do you need us to read all those separately or just make a motion to approve all 5?
Just making a motion to approve all 5, please.
If there's, do we need to talk about it or are we good? I think we're good. Okay. I move that we approve the 5 resolutions for the school marshals.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Thank you.
Thank you. We're really grateful for our school marshals, that entire program, the work that's gone into it this year. We've made some really great updates to that. We've evolved our leadership in how that system works. And so just want to give thanks and appreciation to those folks for their works. And I do want to clarify on that prior motion, item 15 and 16. Those 2 motions we covered were each item 15 and 16 in case. We kind of ran that together, but we approved 15 and 16 in those 2 motions. So make sure you're clear. All right, next item up. Consider the delegates and alternates to the TASB online convention on October 3rd.
Trustees, good evening. The 2021 Delegate Assembly will be held on September 25th during the annual TASB convention in Dallas. School boards are requested to register a delegate and an alternate for this event. The attending delegate assembly gives the delegate the chance to participate in the democratic process that governs TASB. And the delegate that you all elect will elect TASB's leadership team and vote on the upcoming advocacy agenda of TASB.
Thank you very much. And so would anyone interested in volunteering for that role?
So I will say that I have had the pleasure of doing this I literally do. I love this. I love the vote and I love all of it, but it's family weekend at Baylor. So my priorities have shifted slightly. So Marvin has volunteered to
Marvin,
go and
you would
be
like
our
to do
delegate.
that? Yeah, I'm volunteering. Awesome. So Marvin, do we also need an alternate?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Wood, would you be interested in being the alternate? I will. Awesome. Any other comments or thoughts around those two individuals?
Awesome. You're going to love it.
All right, so we would need a motion to appoint those folks to be our folks.
I make a motion that Marvin Bobo will be our TASB delegate and Jeff Wood our alternate.
So moved, Amy Smith.
I'll second that.
Second by Ann. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you, Marvin and Jeff. Thank you, Stacy. Next item up is to consider approval of the July 2022 and August 2022 board meetings and workshop dates. Ms. Cordell.
You skipped one.
Well,
It looks similar, that's why. It's
oh, sorry, Stacy.
That's okay.
All right, consider candidates for the TASB Board of Directors.
Yes, sir. The Lovejoy Independent School District Board of Trustees are invited to endorse the candidacy of one of the following for Region 10, Position A on the TASB Board. Tricia Eichard with Maypearl, Ty G. Jones with Lancaster, Stephanie Odell with McKinney, and Jeff Pendle with Community ISD. A biographical sketch of each of these candidates is included in your board book, and you may endorse one of the four, if you so choose.
I don't know. I don't know.
I know Stephanie Odell.
I know her
she's
too.
fantastic. That would be who I would recommend that we support.
met at the TASB convention.
Is that who?
Did you introduce us to her?
No. No, she was from the Midlothian. No, this is for Region 10, Position A. So Stephanie Odell's on the McKinney ISD board.
I know Stephanie as well, not just from school board stuff, but I knew her previously, and I think she's similar to the way we feel about doing this job. She's got a servant's heart and is for kids, and it kind of showed, I thought, in her profile, but I'm fine either way if we want to not endorse, but if we did endorse one, I would choose her for that network.
Certainly, if we have recollection or knowledge of one being of quality that would represent our interest more than others, then I would prefer we endorse one versus not, but I don't know any of these folks, so I would rely more heavily on your recommendations.
She went to Texas A&M.
She does whoop here and there, so you would like that. Not a lot. but-
She's super active. She attends the Region 10 ladies. We meet often, and so she's well connected and she listens and she's got great relationships, and I think she would be a wonderful representation. I highly recommend.
Would you like to make a motion to endorse?
Sure, I make a motion that we delegate Stephanie Odell, endorse as our Region 10A candidate.
I'll second that.
Motion made by Amy, second by Ann. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you, Ms. Stacy. So now I get to move on. All right, item 20, consider approval of the July 2022 and August 2022 board meetings and workshop dates.
Yes, Mr. President, I appreciate that. We have some proposed board dates for July and August of 2022. This is for board and administrative planning purposes. We are recommending this evening your consideration of Monday, July 18th for a regular board meeting, no board workshop in July, Monday, August 8th as a board workshop, and then Monday, August 29th as a regular board meeting.
What do you think about that, Chad?
I think those dates are great for y'all.
I think they look comparable to what we did this summer, so I
Fine with me.
think it's
Looks good to
great.
me.
And then people can plan, the community kind of knows they can plan.
Doesn't mean we can't move them. Yeah. We need to. So be nice to get them on the books, work around them.
All right. I move that we approve the dates listed on the calendar here for July and August of next year.
Second.
Motion by Marvin, second by Ann. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, motion carries. All right, cabinet reports.
Sorry, I thought I'd hit some kind of limit.
That was me, sorry.
Oh, good evening. Thank you all for being here. We have some brief reports from all the cabinet members, so I will kick that off here. And we're going to talk a little bit about business services and operations. And the idea behind these reports is just that we bring you up to date with any kind of conversations or developments that we have to keep you aware. So the first topic I'm going to discuss briefly is facility capacity and utilization. So as we begin the school year, we are constantly looking at enrollment and attendance and all of those types of things. And so in doing so, we've looked a little bit about our capacity in our facilities. We've identified additional spaces that could be used in different ways, but at this stage, we're fine. I know there was a previous discussion at the last board meeting in regard to different types of capacity and how those are evaluated. So just in the way of information, this is very general. There's probably about 5 or 6 different descriptions that you might hear used in regard to capacity. But in general, the basic is design capacity. So that's the total number of student seats that a facility was designed to accommodate. So that's the simplest way to evaluate the capacity of a facility, and really simply looks at the number of classroom spaces times the number of students. There's also what's often used, which is functional capacity, and even more specifically might be called program capacity. So this also takes into consideration the level of schedule flexibility that might be in place in the building. It looks at the different type of program offerings in the building. So whereas I may have 10 classrooms, if 1 or 2 of those is used for smaller types instruction, such as special education or gifted and talented, I may not have as many students in those classrooms. Also in the secondary level, I might have different scheduling opportunities. Anybody here been in charge of this high school schedule? I'm so scared of that. But there's a lot that goes into scheduling spaces. So essentially those are 2 general, basically as generally as we can make it, the types of capacity analysis that we do in facilities. So when we're doing those analysis, there are several variables that we look at. The first type of variables we look at are operational variables, and those are all listed here. So one of the things that you'll hear talked about when we look at capacity is utilization. And recently I was reviewing our last demographic report from January 2020, and it actually listed utilization percentages based on our projected enrollment and space in each facility. So those utilization rates is basically the percentage of the building that you're going to be using based on those operational parameters I just listed. So those can range all over the place depending on the type of facility and the way the district uses it. Operational policies, staffing, funding structures, TEA even gives us some guidelines on the type of spaces we need to use. Also, we have to look at space management. Just like in my house, there's probably some space I could use a little bit better. But really, a lot of it also comes down into specialty program offerings, right? So what type of things are we doing in our spaces really impacts the use. We also have programmatic variables. So what kind of class sizes do we have? We're pretty standard, and we're very fortunate where most of ours are very advantageous for our students. We have educational program offerings that vary by campus. We have operational models that vary. So these are all just different examples of things that might impact the functional capacity based on these types of practices. So what we're doing right now is we have met with an architect, the one who did the majority of our current facilities, built those, so that we could really assess what our capacity is, not just from a design standpoint, but from a functional and programming standpoint. So they're going to assist us with calculating not only our design capacity, which we kind of know already, but our current functional capacity based on how we're operating our facilities today. What is our functional capacity and what is our optimally efficient functional capacity? So, and somewhere in the middle, no district is optimally efficient from a functional capacity basis. So somewhere in the middle is usually where most districts land, but we'll be able to look at what they bring us back in those three different categories so we can see where we are today and any changes that we may want to make or consider going forward to optimize student instruction. We will also be able to determine any of those outlying differences, like I said, for future discussion. At this point in time, we have not, the next step really is to sit down with principals and walk through the facilities and look at them and see how it's being used. We're not going to do that to them right now. They've got a lot on their plates. But in the next couple of weeks, we'll be planning towards that end. In relation to operations, some of the developments that have happened since our last board meeting include that we have really taken a concerted effort at looking at our winter damage claim. We were in the process of making some repairs related to that. I've experienced some pretty large claims in my time in operations. So I immediately noticed that there were some things that we hadn't yet submitted. So we sat down with our insurance company and we discussed the fact that even though we may not have fully expended funds, as soon as we put a PO down, they're encumbered, so they're no longer available to us. So they've agreed to accept a PO as something that they can reimburse us for. So to date, we've received $268,372 more than we had last month. So that's going to help us keep moving with completing those projects. The high school turf, if you have not seen it, is amazing. And thankfully, the main home concession stand is complete. So that will all be prepared, and we're still working on the last few concession stands and buttoning those up. Willow Springs Middle School is 80% complete. Baseball and softball, of course, a lot more land out there. So those will be completed later, probably December. The practice fields probably by spring, but we're definitely making good progress. So last but not least on the operations stand, we're also looking at our continuous capital planning. So you saw before you the $5 million in bond sales from the remaining 14.5 left in our last bond. So we are looking at what are the needs of the district from a capital standpoint, whether it's playgrounds or security needs, those types of things. And of course, as we develop those, they'll be brought back to the board for consideration. In terms of our finance development since the last board meeting, we did finally complete the 2021 budget amendment, which when I got here, I realized that hadn't been fully buttoned up. So we were able to complete that last weekend. Our auditor came today, and I promised him that I did not turn the lights out on him to make him leave. But he'll be here for another week or two, and it'll take us a while to get through the end of our annual financial report and audit process. We did complete the bond defeasance, which was kind of a pressing timeline since that had been approved by the board in January. We executed that. So our next big focus over the next week will be completing our ESSER application and submitting that, as well as in the following weeks doing our meetings with underwriters so that we can complete the bond sale and refunding. And just a couple of things to look to the future. In September, we'll likely bring you the investment policy update, which we do annually. We'll start discussing the opportunity to have a financial futures committee to continue our discussions on financial sustainability. And in October, we'll be certifying the tax roll and doing our first rating. So those are the items you can expect to see in future board meetings related to finance. So at this point, I think Mr. Musers so far.
Good evening, board and community. My name is Dennis Musers, Assistant Superintendent for Curriculum and Instruction. And I think the thread you'll hear through all of our presentations or updates tonight are our work is really about supporting and enhancing the student experience, the staff experience, and then of course we have some compliance measures that we have to take care of as well. So I think you'll see that in each cabinet member's update. Although it's curriculum and instruction, it also includes human resources as part of our department. And so, of course, that is about taking care of our staff and ensuring that we are have all of our staff in place. And I'm proud to report that we had, prior to the first day of school, we had all instructional positions were hired. That's always a big challenge, and our principals do a fantastic job of vetting the deep pool of candidates that we have and ensuring that we bring on the best and brightest educators, such as you saw tonight in the introductions. We had another successful year of learning in Lovejoy. That's our professional development that is targeted at our staff. We do 4 days at the end of July to ensure that we are meeting the needs of our teachers in terms of building their toolkit when it comes to providing great instruction for students. So we had professional development around cooperative learning structures through Kagan. We also provided instruction, a variety of instructional settings and structures and sessions around specific roles. So training specifically targeted for our library media specialists, our counselors. Fine Arts does specific capacity building with their staff as well. Certainly a thread that's pulled through there is how we leverage technology to enhance student learning regardless of what subject or grade level students are teaching, teachers are teaching. So another successful year with our 4 days of learning in Lovejoy at the end of July. A variety of sessions that were really targeted and focused on needs that we've identified and just capacities that we know we have to continue to develop with our teachers. In addition to that last week of July with professional development, what's come to be known as Academy Week in most districts is that week before when teachers are officially back on contract, but it's the week before our amazing students show up. So the week of August 9th, we had professional development sessions, nuts and bolts session, really how do we start the school year strong sessions on every campus. And so that week is chock full of excellent professional learning for our teachers. And we kick it all off with our convocation on August 9th, which was again, just a fantastic kickoff to our 21-22 school year. In terms of supporting students' experiences and being sure that we meet all students' needs, we tested 120 students for potential GT identification over 14 different testing sessions this summer. That is, I think, a new record for us. And we're happy to, of course, ensure that we are meeting the needs of students and appropriately placing them based on their learning needs. We did have a TEA audit last spring, really focused on all of our special programs, career and technology, special education, and we completed that with flying colors. We had no findings from the TEA auditors, and that's very rare. We also have completed a T-class Texas COVID Learning Acceleration application that was due last Friday. We will be receiving some additional funds to really support T-class work that we will be doing with our teachers and of course students. House Bill 4545 is something that came down the pike very late this summer from the Texas Education Agency. It is a House bill that required immediate implementation, and that what that requires is additional tutoring and support for students who were not successful on STAR tests last year. And so we're working diligently to develop learning plans for those students K through 12, well, 3 through 12 who were in last year. So this year's 4th through 12th graders. Of course, STAR testing is just one measure of how we're supporting students in their learning. But of course, we want to ensure that they are meeting grade level standards, and that's really what House Bill 4545 is intended to do, is to ensure that we are going back and working with students now who may have had learning gaps for one reason or another from last school year. Another legislative mandate is reading academies for all K through 3 teachers over this year and next year. This year, we decided to support all of our K through 2 teachers through this actually rigorous training to support their understanding of early literacy. And so all of our K through 2 teachers and our elementary administrators are participating in the Texas Reading Academies, and we're delivering that professional development. We kicked it off during Learning in Lovejoy, had additional, and we'll be supporting that initiative 1 day per week throughout the rest of the school year. Again, it's very rigorous training, but it's excellent training to support our teachers to help them guide early literacy understanding for our students. We've collaborated with our technology team to really ensure that we have all the digital resources and the full range of other resources in place for the school year. That got kicked off last week, prior to last week, but fully in place by last week. And then, of course, we want to support teachers. If a teacher is new to teaching or just in their second year in the district, they receive a mentor that has a veteran teacher in the district. And so all of our mentor teachers and mentees have been identified, and a schedule of support has been put in place for the 21-22 school year. So that's just a little glimpse into what's been occurring in the C&I department for these last couple of months.
I want to give a couple of updates on transportation and our safety and security. At the last board workshop, Mrs. Lewis did share with you the shortage of bus drivers that we are experiencing not only in this community, but throughout our state and nation, if you've seen what the news is sharing about that, and the impact probably with the overall shortfall with the workforce, is we're being impacted by that. So at this time, we still have 7 openings for bus drivers. I want to give you a little bit of an idea of what we are doing with recruitment efforts at this time since we last met with you. You did agree to approve an hourly pay rate increase so that we could become more competitive with some of the area districts. A staff referral incentive has been put in place. So what that basically means is that if a Lovejoy ISD staff member refers a bus driver that we hire and they're on board for 30 days, they receive $250 for that referral. Also, our HR department has done a tremendous job on ensuring that we're increasing our advertising of our openings and what we are offering our bus drivers here in Lovejoy, and they're ensuring that we've increased our presence on job boards, and we'll be attending job fairs to increase that recruitment efforts. Retention plan. First and foremost, I had the privilege last week of riding on some buses with these wonderful children, and it was just warms your heart to see what our bus drivers are doing and the commitment and dedication they have despite the weather and some of the power outages, and it made me very proud to be part of that team. We are working with the HR department on a retention plan that we're going to be bringing forward to you at our September board meeting to hopefully keep our drivers, and we are being very intentional about letting our drivers know how much we appreciate them and being present so that they know that they're supported. Also, our ridership, just want to give you some details on our ridership. As of May 2021, we had 877 students registered for transportation. As of today, we are serving 1,396 students on our buses. For the shuttles, which is not included in that number, we are serving 356 students on our shuttles, which is an increase from last year because we did add the after-school care. There's a 101 that were that are on our shuttles for that. And then for employee students, we have 255 that are on the shuttles. We did, as of today, add 2 additional shuttle routes to address the drive time that some of our little ones were on the shuttles. So we were pleased that we had the staff through some help with some of our administrators out at the high school that are stepping in and driving those shuttles for us. We do have a wait list that we have put in place. We've had a significant number of inquiries from parents wanting to add services. Our limitations are that it's not that we don't have buses, we don't have drivers to add additional routes. So if we can recruit more drivers, we will be able to add some additional routes. This week, the transportation team will be evaluating our current routes and if we have any available seats so that we possibly can address some of those parents who are wanting to add students to our buses. But at this time, we're still trying to kind of work out to make sure that we're maximizing our routes and also ensuring that we're not exceeding capacity on our buses too. On safety and security, yes. Mm-hmm.
I just wanted to thank y'all. Katie, you, the whole team on admin, as well as the bus drivers. This week was really hard. One, it's the first week of school, which is always hard. Then we had the monsoon, we had the power outage, we had like anything that could go on, right? Mm-hmm. So thank you. I don't know if we've ever had to drive buses and be there with kids. I was willing to do it too. I mean, like, it's just the heart of you guys as leaders is wonderful. So thank you. And thanks for just calling it what it is. It wasn't great. Your video addressed it. And I hope the community appreciates that we're trying and they're working their tails off. And so thank you very much, all of you, for everything.
I'd like to also shout out to our principals. They have been wonderful about stepping in and assisting. In fact, I understand today that Mr. Mayfield stepped in as a aide on one of our buses to assist at the last minute. So we really appreciate that support.
Can I make a quick comment real quick and maybe a suggestion? So one, I applaud you for pushing with the employee referral program. I think it's great. That's always great when your team goes out and tries to recruit others to come join the team, right? I'm going to throw out a suggestion, maybe if this is possible, creating something similar for our community where somebody in the community who has a student rider, if they refer somebody in and we hire them, give them a $250 credit towards their rider with the upcoming semester. And then if they can't or don't have a driver or a rider in their family, maybe make it as a $250 donation in their name that circles through the foundation and then back to us for some of our programming. So just a thought of expanding into the community, because I know we have folks that would probably, they may know somebody. So
it takes us all,
just
right?
Expands that offering.
Thank you. Update on safety and security. We have the past couple of weeks, we have been training with our central office staff to ensure that they have the same training that we have provided for our campus staff regarding safety and security measures. We are looking at providing some and purchasing some safety and security enhancements, focusing on communication, and our hope most likely that will come out of some of the bond monies that Dr. Duplessis was discussing earlier. We have also had our school marshals working with our campus principals to assess the arrival and dismissal procedures and traffic flow so that we can ensure safety of our students and our staff. And then just a leadership update, Casey Littlefield we named him our lead school marshal, and he's been instrumental in working directly with central office and myself to shore up some of our safety and security practices.
I personally want to say thank you so much for doing that. I have seen him work as that leader and do a fantastic job. And so to be set as that leader and be able to shine for what he is, I'm super grateful that you have chosen that. And I think the whole team is fantastic.
We
so
totally
thank
agree.
you for all that's going on there.
Maybe Casey could step out so the community could say
Here's Casey
hello.
right
Thank you very
here.
much for that.
Not to mention that those safety marshals serve so many other interests for our kids in our programs, our transportation. They weigh in on so many things, and the kids are engaged by them in a very kind and loving way, and that gives them more confidence to, I think, go and learn and enjoy themselves. So they do a really great job.
Good evening, and as you've heard, it's been very busy in student services, so I will share a couple of just data points around special education, and I'd love to be able to tell every individual story of a student that we serve, whether through special education or 504 dyslexia. That's all protected due to confidentiality, but I can tell you that our campuses are working really hard. We have some students who haven't been on campuses in many months due to staying home virtually, and so campuses worked hard to make sure that they have good plans and processes and accommodations in place. Number-wise, we have across all campuses 378 students that we're serving in special education, and that number, it moves all the time. If you notice down below, we have 35 pending evaluations, and really what that means, we have students who are pending an evaluation to determine whether or not they meet eligibility in special education. But again, that's a constantly moving number. We also are working with our new families that have moved in with students who are receiving services, so they're having transfer meetings, welcome them into Lovejoy, getting their plans up and running. The second column is through Section 504, and again, right now we have 498 students across all the district that we're serving, but we also, that's a moving number that changes as someone meets eligibility or if a student is already receiving those services and transferring in. And last but not least, dyslexia. We have a dyslexia program in the district. It's Take Flight. It's the program through Scottish Rite. And a student who meets criteria for the program, and that's again through an evaluation, they're in that program for 2 years. And it's very intensive, provides great strategies and supports for students. And we're currently serving 85 students actively. They go 5 days a week for 45 minutes and supporting work with a certified academic language therapist. But if you see the number down below, that 241, those are students across the district that are identified with dyslexia. And so the campuses have plans in place that supports their accommodations and needs, and then also always have access to the dyslexia therapist if for some reason a student starts having difficulty that we think that may be tied to the area that they were identified in, which would be dyslexia. Our Child Development Center, this is actually our second week, although actually going on our third week. So we opened up on August the 9th, and here's our current numbers. It's been a great opportunity to support early intervention for students and just getting the ball running for their academic growth. And in infant room, we have 7 sweet babies. Not all of them are here yet. Some are projected. Some will be transitioning in, but we are serving infants at this time. And the ratio, you may not be able to see that. So we're licensed by the state, and so the state provides ratios that allows how many children we can have to a staff ratio. And in the infant room, that's either 1 adult to 4 infants, or 2 adults to 10. In our toddler room, we currently have 6 students enrolled, and this enrollment process is ongoing. So if someone's interested and we have space based off ratios, we are accepting new students. That ratio is 1 to 9, so we do have a little bit of wiggle room in the toddler room. In our 2-year-old room, that ratio is 1 to 11, and we're at 9 students at this time. Our pre-K 3 room, we have 14 students. That's a 1 to 15 ratio. And pre-K 4 is our largest, and definitely we see a trend where our community and families are definitely excited about getting that step right before kindergarten, getting them kindergarten ready. And we do follow the pre-K guidelines, which is the precursor to kindergarten. And so as you notice, there's 43 students. We actually have 3 classrooms that serve pre-K 4. That's a 1 to 18 ratio. And then you heard, based off the transportation report, our after-school academy, that was formerly Kids First, is now After-School Academy. It comes here. And we have 97 students, and they definitely were troopers as we were working through this week of getting through transportation time, the rain, the different transitions. And when they came in and got situated, they had nothing but smiles and were ready to play and eat a snack. So definitely it's always amazing how resilient our children are through adverse times.
Any questions? Thank you so much for those reports and updates. Obviously, we have covered a lot of ground in a short period of time with many things to accomplish, and just would express gratitude to our administration, our teachers, our staff, our team for what we have endured and continue to endure this year. And thank you for making our kids first, loving them, and staying focused on the principle of educating our children. So thank you for all that you're doing, and thanks for all those great work. All right. Superintendent's report. Ms. Cordell.
Thank you, Mr. Owens. We are thrilled to have kids back on campus. It brings an entirely different energy to our school district, and there is nothing like seeing a kindergartner on their first day of school. We had Senior Walk, which is a very special tradition here at Lovejoy ISD. It is our seniors' last first day. We had an incredible turnout, and to see the look of pride and excitement on our seniors' faces is pretty special, especially since seniors oftentimes don't always let us know whether they're happy about something at that stage. And so that was especially fun to see. As we discussed, we had some challenges the first week of school. We've talked about transportation. That was compounded, of course, by the weather. I was not aware that almost every dismissal or arrival in Lovejoy ISD, apparently, we have a torrential downpour. I will say that those challenges were incredible opportunities for us as a team to look at systems, processes, communication structures that we could approve and have in place. So impressed with the team, the way everybody stared the challenges in the eye, looked at what needed to be done in the moment to take care of kids, to take care of staff, and then problem solved also in the spirit of what comes next. How do we make sure that if we're ever in this situation again, we are able to navigate it much more proactively and much smoother for the things that we have been put in place. So incredibly impressed with that. As Dr. Tinsley mentioned, our principals and our campus staff just have done an incredible amount of work to get the school year started. It is hard to start the school year in the best of conditions, much less in rain like that. And we had staff that were out there getting kids on buses multiple days where their shoes had floated away because they were just soaked to the bone and their shoes were so wet. And so riding on that bus, I will tell you, is one of the most humbling things I've done, just from the standpoint of deeply appreciating what our bus drivers do, but then getting the vantage point of going campus to campus and watching the staff out there take care of the kids. And so very humbling, very grateful. something that I'm focusing on right now in my leadership is making sure that we take care of staff. We've got a staff that has been through a remarkably difficult time for over 24 months. The normalcy of school has been unfortunately interrupted, and there's been a lot on their shoulders. So in addition to the jobs that they already have at hand, they also have additional things on their shoulders that relate to COVID, relate to the budget shortfall, relate to the transportation shortage. And so I'm being very mindful of making sure about this staff, the staff throughout our district and on our campuses, that we are expressing that gratitude, making sure that they are taking care of themselves as well, balancing that work and personal life as well, because we know that this is a marathon and not a sprint. Sometimes we have to sprint to make sure we take care of things, and we will, because we're going to do whatever it takes. But we also want to make sure we take care of our folks so that they are in the best possible position and in the best possible spot to do their best work on behalf of our students. We also have had a change. I was very much looking forward to being at Leopard Stadium this Friday on our new turf. But John Paul is no longer going to play us, so we will be playing Bryan High School in Waco ISD. So we will be on the road for our first home game.
Thank you, Ms. Cordell. I think you covered the announcements. So we'll move on to item, do you have any other announcements? Okay. We'll move on to item 24. Lost by. All right, so we will now open public comments for non-agenda items. Ms. Dillon, do we have anyone signed up?
Mr. Owens, we have 20 community members signed up to give public comments related to non-agenda items.
20?
20, yes, sir.
All right, so just a few announcements about comments. Audience participation at a board meeting is limited to the portion of the meeting designed to receive public comment in accordance with the policy. At all times during a board meeting, the audience shall not be entered into discussion or debate on matters being considered by the board unless requested by the presiding officer. Individuals participating in submitting a comment card in advance of the meeting. Comment cards are not transferable to another speaker, and incomplete or ultimately submitted public comment cards will only be heard if time allows. Sign up opened 1 hour before the posted meeting start time on the agenda and closed at the posted meeting agenda start time. If a speaker is not present when his or her name is called, the speaker forfeits the opportunity to speak at the meeting. The board will hear public comments regarding agenda, non-agenda items at this time. In the interest of time and orderly conduct of business, the board reserves the right to adjust when public comment will occur. 3 minutes is the amount of time you'll have to speak, and you will be asked to stick to the 3 minutes. In no event will speaker be given less than 1 minute to address the board. A timer is displayed on the screen. Do we have that?
I have the timer.
Right. If any comments are limited solely to the identified item, that doesn't apply. Presiding officer shall determine whether an individual addressing the board has attempted to solve a matter through resolution channels established by policy. If not, the individual will be referred to the appropriate policy to seek resolution. It is a criminal offense for a person with intent to prevent or disrupt a lawful meeting to substantially obstruct or interfere with the ordinary conduct of a meeting by physical action or verbal utterance. If you exceed the 3 minutes, we'll give you one warning, and then we'll kill the mic, and if you continue, we'll have you escorted from the meeting. So just please stick to the rules. We want to hear from all of you. That's why we have this. And with that, we will begin.
I apologize in advance to our speakers if I mispronounce your name. The first speaker this evening is Woody Burney.
Can you say the name again? Again.
I'd like to start with a thank you to the board, the leadership, and administration, the faculty and staff, and all the parents. We're all here to try to do what's right for our kids, and that is super hard to navigate right now. My 4 kids are all back in school. They're thrilled to see their friends. My older 3 are vaccinated. My 7-year-old is not. He's too young. We started the year in the district with none of the virus containment efforts we had in place last year, and that shows up in our numbers. In 1 week, we have as many cases in Puster as we had all year last year, nearly double, I think, as of the last refresh. 3 of my kids got notified today that they were exposed to someone who's tested positive, and my guess is that we're probably underreporting. Southwest Medical Center shows that pediatric admissions for COVID-19 in our area is 150% higher than the prior peak. That's Dallas, including Collin County. This is the worst pandemic hospitalization for kids at the pediatric level that we've ever had nationally, in Dallas, in the Metroplex, and in Collin County. None of us want to be dealing with this right now, right? Like, we want things to get back to normal. And so I think we have a common goal to keep our kids in school. I know the board, you guys got some legal advice today. I'm glad you did, about what the rules are in these changing times with the TEA enforcement and the mask mandate rules. I think we have an option to be leaders and to ask people to consider wearing masks. We can always ask, right? We can't necessarily mandate unless we think we can do so legally, but we can definitely ask people to consider out of compassion to protect, just like we would with peanut allergies, to take care of the kids that can't protect themselves. I know that last year our kids wore masks to protect our teachers, who are the most vulnerable. It would be nice to ask our teachers and staff to set that example and do the same for our kids, especially the elementary folks. And then I think, I'm no lawyer, I'm sure there's some here. The TEA has said they're not going to do enforcement, so I do think we might have some choices. I know you guys got advice on that, but I hope we will find a way to get our students to wear masks at elementary where they don't have a choice to be vaccinated or the chance to do so. I know it's not easy, but kids all over the world, and particularly in Asia and lots of places for religious reasons, do wear masks. I think we can pull it off in order to keep kids at school. Thank you for your time.
What's going on?
You can't be added to the list, sir. That time.
The
to
sign-up
sign
time
is
for public
closed.
comments.
Well, I would like to be added to the list for public comments.
We can't do that, sir.
10 minutes from now, in light of the email that Mr. Winkler just sent, informing us that for the second time this week, there's another COVID case in my son's class.
So you're disrupting the meeting. I'm going to give you one warning.
I think we're entitled to speak, and I am asking simply.
And we're declining that because it's outside of our ability to do it. And we need you to respect what we're asking.
I am being, this is me being respectful, sir.
Thank
The
you,
email
sir.
went out tonight. So
Thank you, sir.
parents whose kids were exposed this weekend, sit down, bro.
Let's remove him, please.
That tells you a lot.
Mr. Owens, the next speaker is Angel Solis.
Thank you very much for the opportunity to speak, and thankfully, I will speak for him. I want to start referring to a note sent by Barrett about a few weeks ago, stating that we were not going to play politics and instead going to focus on keeping our children safe. I'm not going to dwell on the irony of the first part of that statement. Instead, I'm going to focus on the performance against the second part of the statement. As the gentleman who left tried to state, we have 40 infections in little over a week. Counted in that number is my oldest son, second-grade teacher, who tested positive on Friday. Not counted in that number are the 2 classmates for which I just received a confirmation an hour ago. Not counted in that number is my son, who tested positive. The school district is failing at keeping our children safe. The board is failing at making sure the school district keeps our children safe. Now, I know that most of you or all of you have the best of intentions, surely you have considered the range of options, the range of things we can do to keep our children safe. I know, I can tell by all the shirts in the room that we're not going to agree on all of them, but surely there are items that we can implement with urgency to change the course of infections in our community. Now, if you really do believe in keeping your children safe, I hope you leave here with a sense of urgency to consider and implement those measures and keep children safe. Unfortunately, too late for my kid, but I know we can keep the other 99% of the community safe. Thank you very much.
Nathan Hilliard.
Good evening. I want to thank everyone for the opportunity to speak tonight. Yes, sorry. Thank you for the opportunity to speak tonight. And I want to thank the board for the decision to make mask a parent's choice. I'm very thankful for that, and I'm thankful for the email that you did send out. So I appreciate that. And I say that, and also I support, if a parent chooses to have their child wear a mask, I support that 100%. I would stand up here and I fully support them, and I don't agree with any kind of mandate either way. So if the mandate went the other way, I'd still be up here speaking on their behalf. I'm going to make a few quick points about masking the virus. I was watching all of our favorite news network the other day, and Will Kane made a few points and I thought were very important, so I thought I would reiterate those today. First point is COVID, including Delta, has very little risk to children. The mainstream media is telling us that hospitals are full of kids with COVID. But what they're not telling us is they're not full because of COVID. They may be in the hospital, they may have COVID, but it's not because of COVID. Data suggests that COVID is less dangerous to our children than the common flu. Also, another point, there's little evidence to support that masks are effective. There's no science that being masked in school helps with COVID, only a CDC proclamation. In February 2020, Sylvia Burwell, who was the Secretary of Health and Human Services for President Obama, was scheduled to travel, and she asked Dr. Fauci for his advice on masks. And he responded, and I quote, "The typical mask you buy in the drugstore is not really effective at keeping out virus, which is small enough to pass through material. It might, however, provide some slight benefit to keeping out gross droplets if someone sneezes or coughs on you. I do not recommend that you wear a mask," that's an end quote. I also have a medical doctor friend of mine who is an ER doctor, and he put it this way. He says, imagine walking up to a chain link fence with a handful of sand. And you throw that sand at the chain link fence. That fence is going to stop the sand. It's going to be as effective as a mask would be stopping a virus. And another point that Mr. Kane made is normal immunity is better than vaccination immunity. Studies in Israel show that T cell and B cell immunity make it much less likely that you will get COVID a second time, way less likely than if you've been vaccinated. Another very important point that I think something that I really wish was reported more is that therapeutics help. Therapeutics reduce hospitalizations up to 80%, but you can't find those studies if you look on the most popular search engines. You have to go to somewhere like DuckDuckGo, an independent search engine, to find those. I thought this was interesting as well. The Brookings Institute Public Perception Study says that Americans are 81 times off on the perceived versus the real risk of COVID. I think that says a lot. And everything that I just said in here is backed up by science, not experts.
Thank you, Mr. Hilliard.
Is it?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Neil Dandona.
Hi, my name is Neil Dandona. I'm an anesthesiologist in this community. And I just want to share the reality of what's really going on in all of our hospitals. Our hospital beds are full of patients with COVID, both immunized and otherwise, that are suffering, in some cases are dying. We don't have the resources to be even able to offer elective surgeries that we provide seamlessly otherwise. We have completely shut down those capabilities. So for anybody in the community who breaks a bone or has a need for a surgery that isn't emergent, they will no longer be able to do that under the current resources that are available. I want everybody to understand again that Delta variant is a variant that we don't understand. A lot of these rules and regulations and guidelines that we're implementing here in Lovejoy and in other communities is based on the knowledge of what the virus was 3 months ago. This is a dangerous virus that is infective, that spreads beyond anybody else's previous experience. This virus does not discriminate based on race, wealth, or creed. Just like anybody else who's seeking expert opinion, you seek the people's opinion who are experts in that field. All of the people, all of the decisions that are run before us that are so carefully thought out that we've seen this evening are based on experience and knowledge from people who are experts in those fields. Just listening to the last gentleman, he sounds like a wonderful person, but does not have the medical expertise to be providing guidance and knowledge of what's there in reality. And I implore you guys to actually seek the medical advice and knowledge from the people who are experiencing this and have true knowledge of this, what this virus is capable of. Secondly, I ask you to look at your peers, look at the other school districts across this state that are implementing mask mandates. Those include Dallas, Fort Worth, San Antonio, Houston, all major regions. These are all experts in education, just as you are. And if they are intelligent enough to have an opinion that you respect, I advise you to please understand and realize what are some of the ideas that they are implementing and what they're listening to. Finally, I just want to say that wisdom is basically being able to anticipate what has not come yet. And based on what's happened even in this last week, this is going to become a raging, explosive fire. And unless we do something right now to encourage masks, we're not going to have a recourse, especially with our youngest children. Thank you.
Mustafa Dahudwala.
I appreciate the board being here on a daily basis. You guys are serving all of us here and our kids, so that's appreciated. And I appreciate the community here. Everybody here cares about us as a community, and we have differing opinions on how to do it. And I'd like to share mine. I'm a physician as well. I'm a cardiac anesthesiologist in the Baylor community. My wife is a pediatric anesthesiologist. She's also going to be speaking a little bit. Look, it's been a roller coaster of a year. It's been very difficult. In August or a month or two ago, my wife and I, we went to Disney World without masks on. There wasn't a lot of Delta. There wasn't a lot of variant. Now it's changed. The facts on the ground have changed, and we need to respond to that, in my opinion. Science kind of has told us that things were going to get worse, and they have. And we in the South have suffered a little bit more because of vaccination rates are a little bit lower. We don't mask up as often as we probably should. We don't socially distance as much as we should. Other states in our country have done a little bit of a better job, and their rates aren't as bad. And it is absolutely true that our hospitals are suffering. The PICUs, the pediatric ICUs are full. And sure, many of them have RSV, but they are filled with COVID patients as well. And we don't know what's going to happen to our kids if they get COVID asymptomatic. We don't know if they're going to be long haulers. So just like we don't know what a vaccine may do to our children, we don't know what long hauler COVID is going to do. And there are clinics at UT Southwestern for long hauler COVID. So it is a concern that all of us should have. And in my view, all we have to do is think about the community. So we have shirts on that talk about freedom. I get that. And I want to be free too. I'd like to walk around naked if I could. But I don't do it because other people wouldn't want to see it, okay? I'd like to drive without a driver's license if I could, but I'm not allowed to do so because we have a sense of responsibility to our community. Vietnam, there was a draft. People didn't get to say they're not going to go fight for the United States of America. So that's kind of where we are right now. And in my view, we have to think about a servant mindset. What is safe for our classmate? What is safe for our neighbor? And the safest thing is to wear a mask once in a while or to keep some distance. And that's okay because I don't like doing it either. I'm here. I take my mask off when I can and I cheat a lot. I'm not perfect. And you'll probably see me at the grocery store not wearing it. And you say, that jackass said to wear a mask, et cetera. It's hard, I get it, but we have to do hard things for our community. This is us, this is who we are. And we have to protect each other. Let's talk about a servant mindset and how can we serve each other? That's all I have to say.
Daniel Bernal.
Members of the Lovejoy Board, my name is Daniel Bernal. I am a proud Lovejoy parent. I also have served on board, so I appreciate your hard work and helping our community. Let me just start off by addressing, why I'm here. I've got 2 kids, started at Puster, have progressed all the way up, one in high school now. So, I'm committed to this community and I love this community and all the kids. So they're all these kids have spent all summer together, spending time at camps, spending time at events, parties. And I'm sorry that some people get sick, but the reality is 99.7% of kids have no ill effects long-term from COVID. That's a stated fact. So as long as we remember that, and we just remember that mortality, they have a higher chance of getting, of having a mortality issue with flu or lightning than they do from COVID. That's another fact. So cross-contamination is a very important thing that we need to talk about in schools. The kids, they're touching their faces consistently. Just every 5 minutes, they're touching the mask. So whatever germs they had on their hands are going to go on the mask. The gentleman that just was up here, he literally had his hands on this microphone the entire time. So he claims that he is being careful about things. He touched the mic. So everybody that comes up and touches this mic now are going to have his germs. So cross-contamination is another very important point that we need to think about. The immune system, kids' immune system, it needs to be strengthened. That's what the whole thing of kids is. Kids are going to get sick. But again, if we remember the fact, 99.7% of kids are not affected by COVID. Moving on, let's get to the legalities. The mandate, which possibly happens in other schools, Governor Abbott has already signed an order prohibiting government entities from mandating masks. And Ken Paxton, our Attorney General, is ready to do lawsuits against these places. So us here at Lovejoy, we can't afford that. We can't afford a lawsuit against Ken Paxton. Let's finalize the close just by saying that I'm a proud American and I'm happy for the freedom of choice. So if kids want to wear the masks, teachers want to wear the masks, man, I think that's the American way. So just let me say thank you so much and God bless you.
Tasneem Duhadwala.
I'm going to touch the mics too. Sorry about that. Hi, I'm Dr. Tasneem Dohadwala. Thank you all for allowing us to speak today. I'm a physician in the community. I'm a mother in the community. I have 2 kids in the district and we've been here for a number of years. So regarding this pandemic, I've dealt with it from a parent perspective as well as a physician perspective, dealing with it on the front line. It's been a stressful year. We've seen a lot of sickness. We've seen death as well, as I'm sure all of you have in your loved ones perhaps as well. As far as when I got here today, someone asked me, how's work going? And what did I say to him? I said, well, things are not going well. As you've heard, elective cases have been canceled. For anyone who is not in a life-threatening situation or an emergency, they will not have a bed to stay in. As you know, I deal with the neonatal pediatric population. The pediatric ICU beds are getting full. There is a blood shortage. The ECMO machines are not available. We are at at a very horrible equipment shortage as well. Things are in a bad situation and are likely to be dire the way we're going right now. So COVID's in our school. We heard multiple parents mention that with their children, with potential nearby contacts, and we all know that exponentially what's going to happen, it's going to get worse. That's a known fact as well. So we need to do something. I think we can all agree with that something needs to be done. We may not exactly agree what's going to be done, but something needs to be done in terms of mitigation, in terms of distancing, in terms of doing cohorts for students to work in groups. And the primary defense, the first line defense is masking. That has been studied, that's been scientifically proven. When I do any kind of procedure, any sterile procedure, what do? I wear a mask. I don't think you're going to want me in the operating room without my mask and my sterile gloves and my sterile gown to do a procedure on you. That's just never would work, right? We would have high rates of infection. So we need to do something. We talked about different government strategies that's been going on and mandates and such. We do know that the Texas Supreme Court is also allowing local schools to have their own universal masking mandate if necessary. And I think we're at that point where we all know what needs to be done as a community. We need to work together, we need to support each other, and we need to do what's best for our kids. We need to have a school open. We need to have kids in school present, doing what they need to do, learning, not at home, not worrying about where they should be. So I think we just all need to support each other. We need to understand things from a different perspective that's perhaps different from your own perspective, and do what's right for the kids as well as the whole community.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Casey Anderson.
Hi, good evening. Casey Anderson. I have 2 kiddos at Hart Elementary. I'm a registered nurse. My oldest kiddo is actually a transplant recipient. He was born with kidney failure, and he was able to receive a kidney from his dad about 2 years ago. His dad and I have spent the past 10 years trying to weigh the risk of putting him out there in the world and what his quality of life would be like. And that's a difficult thing. I empathize with the fear that parents have of sending your kid out there and not knowing what's going to happen. I just want to speak specifically to this, to the notion that masks are an effective way of preventing the spread. I want to talk about a study that was done in Denver. Study because there was 3,030 participants, and they performed the study not only once but twice. During the first peak wave of COVID between April and May of 2020, they performed the study, and they also performed the study in the second peak wave that was October to November of 2020. The conclusions that they found, the first one was that the infection rate was around 2% per month. And this essentially suggested that the mitigating factors, including the mask mandate that was in place at the time, had no real tangible effect on spreading COVID-19. The second conclusion that they made was that really if we want to mitigate the spread of this through mask wearing, we need to be wearing N95 respirator masks. And these are not surgical masks. These are not fabric masks. These are masks that need to be fitted to our face. And our kids are not wearing N95 respirators. Most adults are not wearing them. I think even if we tried to mandate that, our kids are taking them off with dirty hands. They're sneezing in them. They're pulling them down. And the efficacy for preventing that through these fabric masks, it just isn't there. I also just want to point out that in Sweden, they never actually closed schools. They didn't social distance, they didn't mask up their kids, and there was actually no deaths amongst the pediatrics there. In fact, a lot of the teachers ended up having a lower incidence of positive COVID rates. I appreciate your time. I appreciate the physicians who are out there working, and I know that as community members, we're not in your position, but I do think that we should have the freedom to decide whether or not to send our kids to school wearing masks or not. Thanks.
Mark Brugge.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak. Thank you for your leadership and in the past giving us a freedom of choice. I don't have a medical background and multiple degrees, but I do have common sense. It's obvious to me that we have another health crisis that nobody's talking about, and that is they are fear. They have just fear. They're full of fear, some rightfully, but mainly it's just being pushed by outside forces, which is causing people not to be able to critically think and use common sense. It would, you know, I raised 3 kids, and I guarantee you I could tell them not to touch their mask, to not touch the door, not touch this, not touch that, but they're going to forget in about 30 seconds and do it anyway. While I've been here, I've noticed several people, both masked and unmasked, touching their face. And there's nothing wrong with it from the standpoint that it's subconscious. We're not even aware that we're doing that. You know, if whether I could get up here and quote CDC's quotes, you know, reports back in May that said on page 4, 5, and 6, where they did a pool study review where they said that masks don't work for stopping the transmission of a virus. I could tell you all that, but you probably aren't going to believe me, and you're not going to go home and do your own research. You're just going to get up here and continue to believe what you're going to believe, and I get that. But if you're touching your face yourself and touching other things like the mic, it's not going to keep kids from getting sick. It's unfortunate, but a lot of people are going to get sick, and unfortunately, some of us may die. I have lost a friend who was an educator. He was an older gentleman with preconditions, and I can guarantee you today, if he was alive, he'd be up here standing right behind, yelling in this microphone to not dictate to parents how to raise their kids and make medical choices for them. That's my comment. Thank you.
Melanie Dykstra.
Good evening. Thank you very much for letting me speak. I am actually here to read what my son wanted to read to you guys tonight. He actually wrote something. He asked me if he could come and speak. And he did come with me, but knowing that this was going to be a long night, I decided to let him go home, and I said I would read it for him. So I wish that you could hear this from him directly. Good evening. My name is Carson Dykstra, and I'm an 8th grader at Willow Springs Middle School. I know that COVID prevention and mask wearing is a divisive topic right now, but I'm here to simply remind others that masks are not always easy for kids. The summer before my 7th grade year, I was diagnosed with something called central auditory processing disorder. For me, this means that I have a very hard time distinguishing between voices and background noise. Even with normal air conditioning, classroom discussion, or computer clicking, I can miss important instructions given by the teacher. I was given hearing aids to help filter out some of the frequencies, but it's still important that I look directly at a person speaking to hear them well. I hadn't realized how much conversation I had been missing. And I put a note in here myself that he also does have an identified language delay based on the fact that he was missing so much of this communication. Last year, this is back to him. Last year, we were still learning about COVID. While we were still learning about COVID, masks were an inexpensive way to attempt to keep risk at schools low. However, masks made it incredibly hard to hear my friends and teachers. It was more difficult for a conversation to happen with masks anyway, but I would personally only hear bits and pieces of information, which made it hard to respond to teachers or connect with other kids. Another effect of my condition is that I also have a hard time regulating my own speech volume. I tend to speak very quietly because I hear my voice differently than other people do. When you add a mask on top of that, people also don't hear me. So the times that I was able to hear my teachers and classmates, when I tried to comment, I often wasn't heard. As you can imagine, this experience is not good for self-confidence or for learning. I realize that I'm one of many students and my experiences are unique, but I want others to realize that masks are problematic for many kids. If they choose to, teachers can be vaccinated and can wear a mask, although very few seem to be wearing one. While the Delta variant is known to be more contagious, research has shown that risk to kids is still incredibly small. Several researchers have claimed that a kid's risk of being killed in a car accident is larger than being killed by COVID. Getting rid of all of the risk in our lives is not the main goal of coming to school. Health and safety is very important, but so is the development.
Thank you very much. Jill Lamping.
Hi. I'm here tonight to express my concern that we as a community are not doing enough to mitigate the spread of COVID-19 in school. We cannot pretend that the pandemic is over. Last year, Lovejoy successfully mitigated COVID-19 transmission within classrooms by increasing distance, improving ventilation, moving to a block schedule in grades 7 through 12, contact tracing, improved cleaning sanitation, and universal masking. Contact tracing from the high school, from what I've gathered, indicates that the vast majority of cases were acquired outside the classroom. What we did worked. Right now, the only precautions that I'm aware of that we're continuing this year are the improved ventilation and the sanitizing. Importantly, from the data I've seen, only about 35% of our students aged 12 to 17 are vaccinated. I'm going to try to stay in my lane. I'm not a physician or a scientist, and so I'm not going to start to spew studies and facts that I don't have the expertise to interpret. My question is whether Lovejoy ISD will be proactive in implementing best practices as outlined by the CDC in order to control the spread of COVID in our schools, as you did last year in order to protect the ability of our students to receive a high quality in-person education. Or will we as a community allow this disease to spread, which is now a far more transmissible version than we had last year? Will we allow it to run rampant? Public health is not a political issue. It is the mandate of public education in Texas to ensure that all children have access to a quality education. That will not happen if COVID spreads unchecked in our schools. I respectfully ask the school board and administration to go back to the drawing board on our COVID-19 mitigation strategy. The pandemic is not finished. We must act now together to stop it. Thank you.
Cynthia Brugge.
Good evening. We love our children. They're everything to us. Right now, we think we're protecting them from a virus, but it's more important that we protect them from the loss of our freedom. Ronald Reagan said, "Perhaps you and I have lived too long with this miracle to properly be appreciative. Freedom is a fragile thing, and it's never more than one generation away from extinction. It's not ours by way of inheritance. It must be fought for and defended constantly by each generation." I believe the voice that you're hearing tonight is that we have concerns throughout our country and throughout the world. People are protesting all over the world because their freedoms are being infringed on. There are entire countries that are shut down, can't move from one state to the next. There could be a hospital right across the boundary and they have to go 200 miles and stay within their state. That's in Australia or New Zealand. We're concerned about that. I really believe that we need to take another look at I've heard several people say this, and I really like this. Studies show that masks don't keep our children safe from COVID, and neither does the vaccine. But we have a duty to prepare our children for a world where they are likely to get COVID, the flu, RSV, cancer, and other tragic issues. This means that we should focus on living healthy lifestyles. And the solution to this COVID virus is to teach effective early treatment protocols so that we can support each other when we get it. Mark and I got COVID this summer. You know, we haven't been wearing masks. We've been extremely free living. You know, went to Missouri, where every child in America goes to camp. You know, grandparents, family members going to restaurants, not wearing our masks, went to a God and Country convention, had people all around us. And when we came home, we drew the black ball. But there was no guarantee we were going to get sick. Well, what I had, where I was good fortune, was that my husband actually studies all of this information, and he is a wealth of knowledge. He can give you links about studies about masks, studies about the virus, side effects, the lack of data that we have because of the way data is being manipulated. And he calls some doctor where he'd written his phone number down, and it just turned out that the doctor knew protocols about breathing treatments. Well, nobody I know took breathing treatments when they got COVID, but it was very effective for us, and we wouldn't have even known about it had he not been paying attention to so many different sources of information. So what I recommend that we do, clean your desks, clean your doorknobs, sanitize our hands, quarantine when we test positive, just like we did last year, keep accurate data.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Brandon Montgomery.
Hey, y'all, thanks for being here. And just wanted to say thanks for following the executive order and not mandating masks. Should come as no surprise. I think we might remember each other from last time around. But yeah, I understand you guys are in a tough position. It was tough last year when a lot of us were asking you to unmask our kids. And it's probably tough this year with a few folks asking you to mask the kids. And I just want to point out that it absolutely is tragic, and it frankly sucks when there's a life lost, and when that life is a kid, that's even worse. So I don't go into all of this blind, but I would like to say that perspective does matter, and we really need to think about what we're teaching our kids by living in fear. And so if we're going to look at this, I think we should look at some of these numbers. Right now, about 4.6 million kids have tested positive for COVID. Of those, about 420 have unfortunately passed away. It's 0.00009%. This is not a life-threatening situation for our children and isn't likely to become one. If we want to talk about if this will save just one kid, then it may be worth it. And we might want to look at some other areas where we might be able to save some lives. Maybe we stop driving our kids everywhere. 513 children died in car accidents in 2019. Maybe we stop letting our kids play sports. 12,195 kids in 2019 died after injuries in sports. Or we could talk about what I think is a much more dangerous issue, social media and suicide. In 2019, kids between the ages of 10 and 13, about 513 of them took their own life after being bullied on social media. That seems like a much worse thing. And I'm not even talking about the teenagers. There's about 6,000 of them. So I think if we're going to do this from what's going to be a more concerning issue for our children, there are a lot other things than a COVID situation that has a 0.00009% chance of hurting our kids. Thanks.
Ryan G.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you so much for being here. And your job normally without COVID is not that easy, so thank you for being here. Everybody in this room Dr. Dendana, I know him personally. He's put me down. He's woken me back up. Thank you for that. I've had several surgeries in my life, so he's had my life in his hands. I respect the hell out of that man. And I respect all of you, and I love the fact that all of you have showed up here for our kids. I only have one. He's in 4th grade. I've been a Marine, I've been a police officer, and I work for Homeland Security now. And the part that disturbs me the most is how what we're not putting into consideration is letting us be responsible for our kids. We talk about freedom. Kind of amped up, sorry, trying to calm down because there's been a lot of crazy things happening. I watch a lot happening in this world. I can stand here. I've got 25 sources just talking about how masks aren't necessarily the best things because what transmits the virus? Water droplets. In 20 minutes, your mask is saturated. We're asking our kids to wear masks for 8 hours, 9 hours, 10 hours. They don't have the opportunity to change it and change it and change it. If you're wearing cloth, you don't change it. We all pick our face. We all rub our hands on our face. We grab microphones. We run around and we look at each other. These kids are playing and having a great time. We don't know if not doing anything last year would have had the same result as doing all the things that we did. We don't know what's going to happen with Delta. We don't know what the next variant's going to be. It's going to continuously evolve because it's a virus, and that's what it does. But the human body will adapt and move to help its own immunities. We have to tell our kids, wash your hands constantly. Quit picking your nose, quit picking your teeth, get that out of your mouth. It's what we do, we're parents. Let us do that part. If you want to wear a mask, wear the mask. If you want to get 5 vaccinations, vax up, baby, do it. Take 10 jabs, I don't care. That's your life, that's your business. I ask you guys to provide my son with a quality education so he can grow up with confidence, knowledge, not fear. And he comes to me constantly going, Dad, I can't wear that mask. I can't wear that mask. And I don't want him to wear the mask. I'm watching, like I said, I'm with Homeland Security, and the stuff that I see right now that has to do with this virus and not in the schools that's just flooding in is nothing like you guys see in here. This is nothing in the big worldly picture. We've got other countries that have just said, hey, let it go, let's see what people do. And it's kind of taking care of itself. It's not going away. This will not go away. It's going to be with us forever. But we can't tell our kids to live in fear. Oh, go here, gotta wear a mask. If you're doing good people, wear a mask, wear a mask. The mask is great if you want to wear it, wear it. But don't make us tell our kids to live in fear. Wear the mask. You have to wear the mask. The mask is, it's a false security. It may help you, it may not. I haven't seen any research that says this mask has changed everything. Thank you guys.
Sam Lamping.
Hi, my name is Sam Lamping. I am a recent graduate of Lovejoy High School and would like to share my thoughts on COVID precautions in the district. Last year, I was part of the high school band, and if you didn't already know, gathering a bunch of people together to play wind instruments when there's a respiratory illness going around is kind of a problem. And yet, as far as I know, not a single one of the 100-odd band members caught COVID last year. So how'd that happen? Well, the band directors had a certain approach that I feel could be used pretty easily and effectively district-wide. It was masking and distancing in conjunction with a philosophy of taking personal responsibility for the health of the entire band. And I hear that phrase, personal responsibility, being used to discredit any attempt at public safety measures. I'm taking personal responsibility for my family's health, and so you can't tell me what to do. But this narrow definition of focusing on a single family isn't particularly helpful because COVID doesn't stay within families. That would be nice, but it doesn't work that way. It spreads, and so you getting sick infects someone else, and that person infects someone else, and eventually this chain of succession will end with someone dying, or getting lung scarring, or some other side effects. And so you now have to take personal responsibility for all of that, essentially the health of the community. And I think this is the way that we should use this phrase. That's the way the band used it. I remember Mr. Hoyer telling us that we all need to stay safe at all times, because if enough of us got sick, the whole band would get shut down. No more rehearsals, and that would be catastrophic for our success. And guess what? It worked. But just because we were all careful of becoming infected didn't mean that safety measures in the band hall were relaxed. We still kept the masks and we still kept the distancing. Because one person getting infected, despite being cautious, is always a possibility. And one person wouldn't shut down rehearsals. But put that one person in an environment where no safety measures are being taken, and now you have enough cases to get it shut down. The band exhibited safety in both philosophy and action, and it's pretty easy to see how it can be implemented in the schools since it's literally a one-to-one comparison. Don't have much time, so and having students and parents understand that that personal responsibility, or the lack thereof, can lead to extracurriculars or entire schools being shut down is an important step in increasing community safety.
Carla Gant. Carla Gant.
Hi. I don't really have a big script or anything. I just wanted to get up here and I wanted to tell you thank you. I wanted to thank you personally for your email. I want to thank you for following the governor's executive order and following the law like we're supposed to do. These schools that have gone against the executive order, I think, is a political charade and will be dealt with in the courts, and Lovejoy really doesn't need to deal with that. We need to teach our kids to follow the law like we're supposed to do. But most importantly, I want to thank you for respecting our rights as parents to decide what is best for our family and our kids. If you want to wear a mask, great, wear a mask. But don't force us to wear a mask because of fear. It is our right to decide what we want to do with our kids and what is best for our family. So I just want to say thank you to the board for respecting that.
Rayleigh Guess.
Sorry. So I'm Dr. Rayleigh Guess. I appreciate everybody's comments tonight. It sounds like everybody's been doing their own sets of research, but I have a unique perspective in all of this. I'm a pediatrician, more specifically pediatric critical care physician. So my sole job is caring for kids in the pediatric ICU. So when I hear people say that it's fake, it's not. We're struggling big time. Your friends in healthcare are having a hard time. I'm going into rooms and telling families there's nothing I can do for their children. I'm listening to them scream and beg and plead for me to save their child's life, and I can't. And that is the hardest part of my job. And it is happening with kids with COVID. So please don't stand up here and say it's not. The real reason I came up here, that was just my impassioned speech after listening to a lot of misinformation tonight. The real reason I came up here is to let the community know that the
Thank you for your service.
The real reason I came up is because there's a lot of community members asking, is the board reaching out to physicians? Are they asking for help to people that know what's going on? And I wanted to reassure the community that yes, they've reached out to the volunteer members of the medical board from last year. We wrote up a 5-page document of recommendations for infection mitigation in our schools, and it did not call for universal masking. So if you would ask those questions, you would know. I fully support universal masking. I think it would be great, but I know the limitations that the school is under, and we wanted to give them things that they could fully implement. That being said, there's a lot of stuff in there that you're not doing. There's that layered approach that everybody talks about, and I'm just here to ask for a little bit more.
The contact tracing that's happening right now, or lack thereof, is kind of a joke. We're basically receiving blanket emails. We have no idea what's going on. It's creating that fear that we don't want to have. We want to have reassurance. I want to know, was the kid actually, or was there a kid actually within 6 feet of my kid? It changes how we approach things. So I'm just asking for a little bit more. Look back at what we've recommended to y'all and, implement that contact tracing. Try to help us make informed decisions for our families so that we can make the best decisions for our families. That's what everybody wants. It's heartbreaking to see how divisive this is for our community when we should really just be protecting the least of these. Like, that's what we should be doing, and that should be our focus. And it shouldn't be so much anger and calling people out and negative comments. So if you have any questions about how COVID's really going in the hospitals, I would be so glad to answer them. Quick little anecdotal story, since I probably have 45 seconds left. Our PICU is full. A few nights ago, I was at work and I got a call, and there was a patient in the ER who was a young child, and she had a horrible accident at home, prolonged CPR event, and her chances of making it are very grim. And the ER doctor begged me to admit this child to an already packed ICU. And I was able to rearrange things, take resources away from other critically ill children to bring her to our ICU. Otherwise, she would have been flown to Amarillo without family to die there. That's what we're dealing with. And I just beg that y'all respect that and just develop a greater sense of community. Thank you.
Amy Ratliff.
Good evening, board and Superintendent Cordell. According to Children's Hospital, as of August 19th, there are 130 hospitalizations for age 19 and under in 7 children's hospitals across the state of Texas. There are approximately 7,248,970 children under the age of 19 in Texas. So COVID hospitalizations for that age range is 0.0018%. Because of these COVID cases, districts are making decisions about whether to enact mask mandates or not. Collin County was watching Plano ISD today as their board voted on mandating masks. I spent 7.5 long hours there before the board voted on a temporary mask mandate allowing parents to opt out for medical, religious, and philosophical reasons. So almost nothing will change after that 7.5 hours from today till Thursday when it goes into effect. Students choosing to wear masks will wear them, and those not choosing to wear them won't. I am grateful that Lovejoy ISD has been a real-life civic lesson for our children. They are watching and hearing about governors and judges. Thank you for not fighting Governor Abbott's order. Thank you for teaching them the appropriate way to dissent and the importance of voting. Thank you for teaching them to respect the folks with whom they may disagree. Thank you for underscoring the importance of freedom of choice. Thank you all for following Governor Abbott's executive order.
Amanda Blankenship.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you all again for being here and for hearing us. A bunch of people have touched on things, and I wanted my speech tonight to be a little bit more fluid, so forgive me if I misstep. But a lot of people have touched on Governor Abbott's order, and I again would like to echo those sentiments and thank you all for adhering to that, because I feel like the intent with Governor's order was to empower all of us as individuals to make a choice. And I want to remind you, as a TASME board member, you also took an oath of office to uphold and do the same. And just to remind you of what that oath is, it's to the best of your ability, you will preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution and laws of the United States and of this state, so help me God. So when I take a step back and after listening to everything tonight, here's kind of my takeaways. There is no one-size-fits-all plan for any of this, which is why we all have the choice, which is why the governor is trying to make sure that we all continue to have a choice. For every medical professional, great ones here represented, thank you, that have an opinion, there are just as many medical professionals out there that have an opposing opinion. And I know personally, we've asked some of them to send you emails as well. So that is why, again, we as family members, as parents, have the choice in who we choose to treat our family from a medical profession. On top of that, our schools are not hospitals, nor should they be. Nor can we expect them to ever to adhere to a level of safety standards that a hospital is going to have in place. It's a school with children. The COVID number of cases across school districts, both masked and unmasked, are less than 1% of the total population. Less than 1%. And to that end, any current cases that are currently coming up within our school district, you cannot necessarily point out the fact that it happened here. There's times when it takes 14 days from exposure in order for your symptoms to arise. So who's to say that these exposures and these COVID cases are from the fact that we've been in school? Please take note of your schools, both teachers and students alike in your classrooms, who, when given the choice, have chosen not to wear masks. It's been my favorite part of this week, is seeing all those pictures and hearing my children's stories. I can't even begin to tell you. Carson's story, I think every child you would talk to, for the most part, would echo those sentiments. And then I want you to take a minute to recognize everybody in this room. If you're here standing with me for freedom, and if you were wearing red or any other color, will you please stand up? I have always considered us the silent majority who is respectful of everyone's individual choice, but it is time now that we stand up for our freedoms. And I hope that you can see that we're here, even though not everyone here is comfortable speaking and telling you what they think. We are here. We are the silent majority, and I want us to not be silent any longer. Thank you all. In closing, I encourage you all to stay strong on your course of leadership.
Thank you so much.
It's not an emotional decision.
Leslie Tucker.
Hey guys, thank y'all again. It's always, I mean, y'all never have the fun seat to sit in, right? Just listen to all this. But so I'm Leslie Tucker. I have an 8 and a 9-year-old at heart, and I can't tell you how excited they were this year to kind of have a normal year back. I mean, it just changed their whole experience. But I don't want to repeat some of the stuff everyone else has said. I'm not going to bring you statistics and stuff because, again, we have tit for tat for all of that. But what I can say is just some basic common sense. So if I could even ask, for all of you that might have done this summer and had your kids in sports or activities or camps or extracurriculars, can you raise your hand if your kids was in anything? And probably they're going to do the same thing this fall, is my guess. And if they're in sports, they're probably not wearing masks because that would be more detrimental to their health to be covered up and not be able to breathe efficiently. But my point is, so if these kids are wearing masks in the classroom all day long, which we talked about the efficiency of the mask there, but as soon as they leave the door, that mask is ripped off. They're playing in the neighborhood with their kids. They're after hours with practices, and they're playing soccer and basketball and football and just, I mean, so yeah, maybe 8 hours of a day they're wearing a mask, but the rest of the day, screw it, they're just out there having a good time and being kids. So when you're really trying to contact trace where they got this virus, if they do get it, who's to say what that mask is going to do? So I think we can be respectful of everyone's choice. Maybe we can come up with an idea if someone is more comfortable with their kid being in a mask in the classroom. I don't know if you distance them to a certain area where they feel comfortable. I don't know what those rules are, but respect my right as a parent. If I'm going to put my kids at risk on a sports field or anywhere else, if I feel comfortable with them being in a classroom with or without a mask, that's my right. And so the same thing, if your kid is going to be in an extracurricular activity, you're also taking that risk if they're wearing a mask or not wearing a mask. So I think as parents, we have to own it for our own families and also have the respect for others. So just please take that in consideration. Thanks.
Mr. Owens, that concludes the public comments related to non-agenda items.
Thank you.
really want to say thank you for the classiness that was conveyed here tonight and how we conducted ourselves as a community. I am grateful for that and respect every opinion that we receive and appreciate just the classiness. It speaks a lot to every one of you. And